Jamison, great to have you on, man. What the heck? First time having you at the bar.
It's nice. It's an impressive bar.
Thank you. I mean, dude, coming from you, that's high praise. You know, you have some of the most cult following in Vegas for your bars, so that's high praise. Let's get into it right away. So you own the Sand Dollar with Nate. Is there anyone else involved at Sand Dollar? Partners, like private?
One silent partner.
Cool. And you have the Spring Mountain, which has been around for a while. You have the one downtown, and you have La Casa de Juliet.
Yep.
That's awesome. How do you find the time?
I don't.
Right? And then you just had your second kid recently?
Yeah. 14 months apart, the two of those. So it's like having two more projects.
Right. Was that a plan? Like you're like, let's have kids now, let's get it out of the way and stop, or?
No, not at all.
Just having fun.
we were considering having another one. There's no kids in our neighborhood, and we just had one, so we're just winging it.
That's awesome.
Shoot from the hip.
That's good. When it's organic and it's meant to be, it happens quickly, right?
Yeah.
So I've been going to Sand Dollar since honestly, you guys revamped it from, it was originally Sand Dollar, then it became like the bikini bar or something. That was my first experience with it back in like 2000. I want to say it was 11, maybe right. 2011 or 12. And I go in there and it was like, oh, girls that wear bikinis get a free drink or whatever. And it was like the bikini bar. And then I want to say less than a year later or something, it's like, oh, the Sand Dollar is back and it's better than ever.
Yeah. Those, the bikini bar people, I believe, got evicted. Some trouble with bikers and Hells Angels. The landlord got rid of them, I believe. And then they sold it to the people that everyone saw on Bar Rescue. And obviously that didn't work. So they sold. Actually, they never sold it. I found out that it was given away to another family who then sold it to us.
So what was the process of, like, what made you pick that Sand Dollar? Did you guys just always already know the location, the concept? Like, how did that come about?
I was familiar with it. I had been there a couple times. The owners that had it, their daughter worked at Aria with Nate, and she must have told him they were selling it. And he wasn't familiar because he wasn't from Vegas, so he went to our former partner, Benito, told him it was for sale, and then me and Benito had talked about a project before, and so Benito came to me, "Do you know the Sand Dollar's for sale?" I said, "No, but the place is pretty rough." And then he told me the price, and I was like, "That's incredibly cheap." So I had like a bad day at work, and I went home and I couldn't sleep, so I texted those guys, "Whatever you're doing with Sand Dollar, I want to be involved." And no one responded to me. And then I told them I'll quit my job and I'll run it. And then they text me back in like 30 minutes. So yeah, that's pretty much how we did it. And then 45 days later, we had the keys.
Now, what were you doing before this?
I was a server at the Aria.
Okay.
And Michael Mina.
Oh, so that's where you met Nate?
Yeah. I met Benito. Me and Benito were at American Fish prior to Bardo, and they closed down American Fish to remodel and reconcept, and then that's when I met Nate at Bardo.
Okay.
Nate actually gave me my interview. It wasn't really an interview because they were hiring me back anyway, but I actually spilled a glass of champagne on the table while I was interviewing, and Nate was like, "No way, we're hiring this guy." And Roberto.
Was it nerves? Or was it just like just happened? It's just one of those goofy moments.
It was like 10 o'clock in the morning, and I don't think I've ever interviewed for a job since I moved here, so it was a little nerve-wracking. And it was like pouring a glass, had a bottle on a tray, and a bottle flew off the tray, hit the table.
Dude.
So yeah, it was disastrous as far as interviews go, but I had worked with the GM prior at American Fish, and he's like, "We're hiring him. Don't worry about the champagne."
He's like, "Trust me, that doesn't happen."
Yeah, that was Roberto was the GM. Roberto from EDO and Anima. So Roberto told Nate, "Just ignore that."
It's pretty funny because I remember before we really got to know each other at all, you early on after meeting you recommended me for an interview with Old Soul when they had something over at the World Market Center. And I honestly, that floored me because I was like, I didn't even know that you knew me, really. And then you're like, oh, I recommend this guy for running the bar program, which it didn't work out. But I was like, first of all, thank you. That was like, I was like, this guy recommended me. What the heck? I didn't even understand why. And I was very grateful. But yeah, like that's kind of where we became friends. But when I watch you work, and you used to be behind the bar at Sand Dollar a lot more, right? I used to see you bartending all the time.
Every day for 2 years.
Every day for 2 years. Was that just because like you want to be, obviously you're very hands on, so you want to be there, but it was because you just did like it's one less bartender to labor person to deal with, or?
The honest answer, we were broke.
Fair enough, dude.
So I didn't get paid for 2 years. We was just surviving on tips.
Wow.
That's how we did it. The tips were good, obviously.
Was that how long it kind of took you to be, if you don't mind me asking, to be in like the black with?
We were in the black almost immediately. But that place at that time was 40 years old. So, and it was constant repairs and constant, we were just reinvesting all the money that we were making.
So did you do a full gut? Like, was the place complete?
No, we put lipstick on the pig. I mean, it felt like a full gut because the place was pretty rough and it was really, really dirty and really like nobody maintained it for probably 15, 20 years.
Jeez.
So all the money we made went back to paying back our silent partner because he loaned us the money and just buying equipment and this and that.
Well, I remember when we were first talking that you told me that you actually had a culinary background, and what made you take the step out of culinary into, being behind like service at Aria? Is it a natural transition for someone like in the back of house to do that? Because I don't see too much of that.
My goal since I was 15 was to own a restaurant. Originally, that started as wanting to be a chef that owned a restaurant. But I kind of moved through the kitchen pretty fast at Eiffel Tower. And the chef used to tell me I get bored too easily. But I just realized pretty early that I was never gonna own a restaurant if I stayed in the kitchen because I don't have rich friends that were gonna invest in me, this and that. I'm gonna have to make some money to get there, and I also need to learn the front of house. I learned really quickly at Eiffel Tower that there's a lot more to the front of house than I had anticipated.
I bet.
So I spent 13 years at Eiffel, and I worked every position in the building except for, I was never a paid dishwasher, but I definitely washed dishes.
Right.
But yeah, I did all the positions in the kitchen and all the positions in the front of the house except bartend. Ironically, I'd never bartended when we bought a bar.
That's crazy. And to end up being bartending as much as you were, and like you said, you were there for 2 years straight, being behind the bar and still having to operate on top of your shift, which anybody that's bartended knows after your shift, you're like drained, like not even necessarily, it doesn't mean like your body is sore necessarily. At a place like yours, yes, because it's so high volume. But like just like talking with guests all night and having to have that rapport takes it out of me,
Yeah.
So to having to run a business on top of that just seems like, whew, how,
Yeah, it wasn't easy. I've been on my feet. I always worked in restaurants, so I'm used to being on my feet long hours, used to talking to guests, coming from serving. So all that stuff came easily. But the running the business part, my partners were both managers in their positions, but nobody prepares you for actual ownership. So we kind of just learned as we went and made it happen. That's really all I can say we did.
Well, from my last conversation I had here with Van, it was talking about to be an owner like you guys, where you're doing cool stuff and you're almost pragmatic in your approach to new cocktails and making it interesting. It seems like you have to have sort of like a almost ADHD personality where you can't sit still for too long. Is that right? Am I characterizing you right? Like you're just like, got to do the next project, got to go to the next thing.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time sitting here right now, to be honest with you.
Oh,
It's nerve-wracking.
oh yeah. Well, at the end of the day, you start getting used to the fact that it's like, you're a sincere guy, right? And you've always been like, I remember when I was getting into repping, like having like brands and stuff. And I was like, the first thing I knew about you before, like, you never said anything to me or anything like that. But I was like, this isn't a guy you annoy with a bunch of cold calls at his bar while he's busy. And some people don't mind it; they're not that busy. You could come in, you stop in, you taste them on a few spirits. But I was like, that's not the way you deal with Jamison. This guy's busy.
I got a little bit of a reputation, I think, for that. Just salespeople in general, a lot of times they're maybe new to the industry, or especially the ones they send to Sand Dollar, they're not exactly or at least in the early days, they weren't seniority type guys. So they were just outgunned coming to us anyway. I was, what I was at that point, maybe 20 years in the industry, serving fine dining. I had to study my homework. I knew everything I could about food and beverage. One of my business partners was a F&B director or beverage director, I'm sorry, for Mina Group. Nate obviously was the manager. So you'd get these like used car salesmen trying to sell me wine coolers, shit like that.
You're like, dude, do you get what we're doing here?
I just asked, did you even look this place up before you walked in here? Like,
Pet peeve of mine.
it's
Like,
really
here's
bad.
our whole book. Which one do you want? You're like, how about you take the time, think what works for me, and bring me a few ideas, a few products. Because like a lot of these reps have several brands they need to push. And again, if you own no Sand Dollar, this is probably one of the biggest high volume, like off strip accounts, period. And it's barely off strip. It's just like a block up, really. And I mean, God, that I see so much running through there. You're like your well business. I bet you that's like coveted. Like people are like, oh, we just need to get in the well on that restaurant or that bar because it's just out of line.
Yeah, it's funny you're saying this because no one's bothered me in a few years, so it's been great. But
Well, have you stepped away from the like? Because I know you have Chase.
yeah, Chase was doing it for I think it was like last 2 years. So if anyone had something, they had to talk to Chase, and Chase kind of insulated me from having to deal with that stuff. But just in general, there's a couple guys that know me before, and we talk about spirits. But for the most part, I'm not trying to hear it. It's just I got what I got, and I want it that way for a reason.
So I'm always impressed by Chase. I remember maybe a year or two ago, I watched him doing some coconut, and I can't do dairy, so I really struck a chord because I was like, ooh, coconut. He was doing some coconut milk infusion, like I forgot what it was. It was something like it was like horchata vibes or something, but it was like a clarified milk punch with coconut milk. And I'm watching him do it, and I'm just like, this guy's a genius. And then it was like, honestly, one of my favorite cocktails. And he made a foam for it that he was like, people want to buy this. Like, I could bottle this and sell it. And I'm like, dude, what a guy. Like,
Chase is always looking out for the lactose people, which I come from French background, and I'm always like, fuck them, they can't drink butter or this and that. And Chase is always like, yeah, but you're going to lose 10% of sales. And I'm like, okay, you're right. So
I'm one of them too. Like, thank God. I think you Finky.
yeah.
Because you had recently they did Nightmare, which for the whole month of October, completely decked out. A ton of like just really cool decorations, very themed drinks for the holiday. But you have a drink called the I Think You Finky, which is like a coconut based, like sort of a slushy with with an Oreo on the top, and it uses Bronco Menta. I was saying that to Ryan. I was like, I love that cocktail. And it's
Did that right out of Morgenthaler's Pepe La Moco in Portland.
okay.
I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's since closed, but I went there and you've ever been to Pepe La Moco?
No.
It looked like an underground bunker. It was like about the size of your living room here, and a dome ceiling cocktail bar. And they did a Fernet Grasshopper, like with the blender, vanilla ice cream, and it would come in a sundae with 2 straws. It was awesome.
That's amazing.
So I was like, how do we do this?
It's like, how do we make it our own?
How do we do this without a blender? And
Number one rule: the blender's broken. Like
yeah, it's $7 is not really a viable
Most bars.
price.
I haven't been in a bar with a blender in years. I mean, we have one in the back house if you need to make an infusion or sorry if you're blending something, but
Yeah.
no, I haven't been on a bar that blends something on the bar top in I don't know, a decade, probably more.
I'm pretty sure we had the oat milk laying around from one of Chase's things, so we made just a shaken version, and we're like, okay, we start tweaking it, like, let's buy a slushy machine, because obviously it's going to be high volume. So if the bartender has less steps,
100%.
it helps everything. So we bought a slushy machine just for that drink.
You have a huge batch program, right?
The biggest batch program in Vegas, probably.
Really? Wow. It's a biggest thing that I learned about running bars is if you don't have a batch program, either you're not busy enough, like you're not doing enough business because like you need a batch program at a high volume, especially how high volume you guys get. It can be good band comes in. I'm talking it's elbow to elbow the whole entire space, and it's not a small room, you know.
Yeah, the last 7 days I've had 400 cases of alcohol delivered to get ready to start batching.
Wow. That's the miracle because you're starting up Miracle soon.
Yeah, and Miracle will get busier every day you get closer to Christmas. And when we start peaking, it works out to 16 cocktails a minute for 12 hours straight.
16 cocktails a minute.
So it's not obviously steady like that for the perfect 12 hours. So when we're
Right.
peaking,
Honestly, thank God, right?
it must be higher than that, 25, 30 cocktails a minute when we're really busy.
Well, I go in there, and there's times it's funny, like who's been around there and who hasn't, because like we all know that you have two lines that make it very easy. If you're sitting at the bar top or you're leaning in a little bit, they'll give you attention. But you want a quick drink, like there's a system, go to those sides. But you can always tell who's been there, who hasn't, who's a regular. Everyone's kind of you got a bunch of bar flies that are there. If I don't see them there, I'm like, what's wrong? Why aren't those people here? Moody's one. There's Glacken's another one. Like I when I go to Sand Dollar, I do feel like it's like another Cheers because I'm bummed when I don't see 3 to 5 industry people, and it doesn't matter. Like once you get past midnight, it's all industry for the most part. But I mean, even at like 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock, before everyone's off, you're still going to see some industry bar flies and some of those. And to me, that's the goal,
When we started, we were all industry guys, so I can't necessarily speak for the other guys, but I didn't really have any friends outside of the industry. So our only people we could market to were industry people. The bar came with its own regulars, like Moody's been going there since the 90s. Moody's part of the lease, I think.
He's like, that's not how they did it, or this is exactly how they did it. Like he knows everything, every difference.
One day I'm going to make a statue of Moody that says, you know what you should do? Because he texts me in the middle of the night, emails me. If the AC's broken for longer than 4 hours, he's up my ass to fix it.
That's amazing. I mean, hey, when you've established your presence at a place, you're an important guest, right? Like not an ego thing. You're important to us as like I know I'm not a restaurant owner, but I've run a lot of teams, and when I see someone on like that's there consistently, even if it's twice a month is a great regular, but your place isn't like that. Your place is like every day, like 4 days. There's a woman, Mary Lee. I don't think I've ever, not one time has she not been there.
Yeah.
She dances for the entire time the band's on. When the band takes a break, she goes outside and smokes a cigarette or something. And then boom, Bam's back on. She's back there dancing.
I'll say it here since this will be public. I hate that woman so much.
Oh, no.
We call her Cha-Cha. We didn't even know her name for a couple of years because she just dances the Cha-Cha. But maybe she spent $20 a year in there.
That's a good point.
And she's filling her flask in the bathroom. I just leave her alone because she's basically a tourist attraction at this point. Like
100%.
If you've never been to the bar, it's like, who is this lady?
Are we expecting her to watch YouTube at all anytime soon, or?
Very doubtful.
I'm like, but you know what? I don't think you could push her away. She just loves that spot.
Yeah.
That is funny though, because that's a big thing about having a like, and obviously, you know, she's not costing you really. She's just another body that does, you know, and I get it. But it's like, it is funny that you know, you think of like certain places and certain concepts, you have to consider how much they're gonna like. This is a business. If you don't want your bar to make money, then they won't be your bar for very long, right? So that's a part of it. Is
She's a unicorn in the fact that she comes 7 days a week and doesn't drink. Like no one's coming anywhere 7 days a week, and even if you were, I wouldn't expect you to drink that much. So I leave her be. If I had a bar full of those, you know, if I had 25 people showing up not drinking, and
can't stay open.
you gotta move along.
Yeah. Well, it's like cigars because I ran 8 Cigar Lounge for a bit, and as the lead, and the problem with 8, like if you don't have a great retail at a place like that, you know, a cigar, you buy the one cigar if you buy it. Some people are bringing it in, and then they might get like a lot of cigars. Smokers aren't necessarily drinkers, so they'll sit there, have their brought in cigar, sit there for 30 to an hour at least, and then you're like, damn, like we didn't make any money. How do I keep the doors open? You know, I talk to people. I've talked to a lot of people that'll be like, oh, I got charged for like a cube. And I'm like, well, it costs the restaurant money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm like, I get it that it'd be nice if it was free, but it's like at the end of the day, if you care about the place you're going to and you want it to have longevity, you want to give them money. You want to, I mean, it's a service, you know, but it's people forget what it takes. Like I was talking to a friend of mine who I love, right? His name's Eric, and he was talking to me. He's like, "Oh, it's just like there's a nickel and dime aspect of things," and I'm like, and I've operated a lot, so it's like I'm kind of like justifying it, you know, finding reasons to like. I'm like, well, you know, giving them an excuse for why it happens, and it's nice when a bar doesn't nickel and dime you, doesn't do that. But it's like at the end of the day, you have to be wise on what is this, how long can we do this without it making it harder to operate? You know, like if you're not making profit, then you can't innovate, you can't change anything. You know, it's hard to do all these things because you're always like you were saying when you first opened, it was a struggle, right? And every restaurant, especially on your first property, like you're figuring things out, you don't have that backing. Like once you now, I'm sure it's probably really easy if you want to open up another place next year. I bet you could go like I could find the funding, you know, and I won't even have to struggle for it if you wouldn't fund it yourself. You know what I mean? But so like once you have that reputation, once you've shown a product that's successful, now money's not that hard to get a concept going. But that first concept, you're like,
Yeah, there's no proof of concept. No one's ever seen you do anything. So they're asking someone to risk a lot of money on something, that product they've never seen before. You can't even show an example really. That's why the first one's always a tough one.
yeah.
So that was the selling point of Sand Dollar, was it's so cheap, and we were like, if we can be successful at this, we can make enough money to open a restaurant. This Sand Dollar was always going to be the stepping stone for a restaurant. So that's what we did.
I mean, your Montucky business there.
Yeah.
You have to. You should be partnered with them because I mean, like that's what we all. I've seen all the local bartenders and stuff. They come in there for their spirits and their Montucky, and you even have like the vending machine with the Montucky mystery beer.
We were the first bar in Nevada with it. That was kind of a selling point to the distributor that was bringing them to Nevada. He's like, listen, I told these guys if you let me sell it in Nevada, I'm gonna get Sand Dollar, and then everyone in the industry is gonna see it, and then you're gonna be everywhere. And that's what happened.
What made you attached to Montucky? What made you like love its flavor profile? What about it?
It was privately owned at the time. We carry Budweiser and those things, but I try to funnel all the money to privately owned labels as much as I can and stay away from the big corporations if I can avoid it. So they were going after the High Life and the PBR crowd.
Makes sense.
So I'd rather
huge crowd.
give these two guys the business.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
When I was working at Yard House, this is a typical bartender server. they had Budweiser, but then they have like 150 beers. And I'm just like, why do we have Bud Light on the menu? Like before the Bud Light controversy, I'm saying just like, what a boring beer, you know? And they're like, Bud Light's what pays the bills. They're like,
Yeah.
Bud Light is what funds the sour that we brought on that 7 people order. You know what I mean? Which again, your beer menu is kind of perfect because it's like one good one of every one good product out of each kind of category of the basic categories. Like you always have like a sour, you always have a lager, you always have an IPA. Seems like you always have a hazy.
Yeah.
You know,
That is the model. We only have eight tap handles. Yeah, we have 8. We used to have 9, but that's the model. Is the best expression of each style on draft, regardless of who makes it, and then 2, 3 options in those categories in package.
yeah.
You can't, and I'm not in the business of educating people, so I'm not telling you don't drink your Bud Light. Or is that you want a Bud Light, you can have a Bud Light.
100%. I agree with that implicitly. I can't tell you how much it bothers me when someone corrects a guest, makes them not look like a champion. Like it's one thing if you're a regular and you're my pal and I'm coming to see you, whatever. You can give me a hard time. We could have that relationship. But like a man is on a date with a woman and you make the man look stupid. Now his date's like, wait, is he stupid? Is the bartender hot? Like what's going? It's like, what's your goal here? You know, it's like, I know some of the best bartenders in town that piss me off with that. They know it. They do know what they're talking about. They're geniuses.
Yeah.
But it's like, I'm not here for you. Like, I'm here for me, my day. I'm here with my date. I want to look like the man, you know?
Yeah.
So that's like a big thing for me. And I love that you said that because it's like the person that wants to be educated will throw it at you. They're like, waiting, what you doing there? What do you got? Like, and that person wants to be talked to. Whereas, the guy that's on there that's like, I'll take, whatever. And you're like, are you asking for this? Because that's how you say it. Like, you're like,
It's the worst.
dude, I'm out. I'm already like, let's finish this and get out of here.
My knowledge of wine, spirits, this and that hasn't really gotten better in these last 10 years, but before I owned Sand Dollar, I could sit at a bar without knowing anyone, and guys trying to educate me on what I ordered was my biggest, like, fuck me.
Yeah, I asked you I was like, what are some of your favorite drinks to drink? And you're like, oh, Negroni, an aged daiquiri, and a Jack and Coke. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'll be honest, if it's wet, I'm going to drink it.
Man after my own heart.
There's nothing I don't like, I don't think, really.
Honestly, it's like, that is almost a problem for me because people are like, oh, what do you drink? I'm like, who am I sitting with?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because if I'm sitting with a shot and a beer guy, guess what I'm having? I'm having a shot and a beer. If I'm at, La Casa de Juliet and I know that obviously you're going to have great beers, you're going to have all, but like I see a bartender that's just like, whipping it up and they have cool stuff. I'm like, okay, well, I want that craft cocktail, but who am I with? We'll take 2. You know what I mean? Like I'm we'll add another one kind of guy. It's like, I don't know if it's my guiltiness of being a bartender and knowing like, it's annoying to be like, we'll take one of every one on the cocktail menu. You're like, God damn it. Like that's a long build. Like now you got 8 tins going. You want to keep track. You don't want to forget,
I will say owning a bar, I drink a lot less mixed drinks now. It's like the allure of it, the mystery of not knowing, when you take something, it's like, wow, that's fucking amazing. But you don't know how they did it. It tastes better. Once you know how it's done, it kind of gets a little boring.
That's an interesting point.
I drink a lot more wine these days than anything.
Dude, me too.
Because I know how it's made, but there's a lot more like nuances going into it.
That's a very interesting point. It's like once you know how the sausage is made, the sausage isn't as appetizing. You know what I mean? Yeah. Pretty interesting because I'm a wine guy in general just because of kind of where I've cut my teeth the most. Like after Carrabba's and Yard House, once I started taking bartending seriously, I was at like nice steakhouses and stuff like that, which is huge wine business. And, I don't like to look like an idiot You know, like you can get away with most steakhouses, especially like one that's like a chain, you know, a great and big chain, but like a chain. So you get a lot of people that are like, ah, yeah, it's a Chardonnay, oaky and buttery. Like no, nothing. They don't. If it's not, they wouldn't know. You know, they're like, it could have been a crisp Chardonnay. They wouldn't know. They're like, oh, you know, Chardonnays are oaky and buttery. So it's like, you get people that, as soon as I like, that's the only time I'm kind of annoyed is when like someone like tells me knowledge as if they are very versed on it, and they're like trying to teach me, but they're not teaching me right. Like that's the only time I get annoyed by like, you know, if
I used to get that a lot. Obviously, I'm like heavily tattooed, and especially when I was younger, I'd go out to eat, and the server, I'd order something, and our server's like, you know, well, this guy's, do you know what you ordered? Kind of thing. Like, are you sure that's what you ordered? Maybe the bottle was too expensive. I'm like, I got it, Playboy. Like, just
Yeah.
bring me what I asked for.
Now you've insulted me.
It's just
me too.
It used to be really bad. Now it's not so much. The gray hair lets me pass.
I did at the high end spirits, it does get a little confusing, a little sketchy, because a lot of people don't know what things cost.
Yeah.
You know, and I want to say someone came in. It was either Macallan 18 or Macallan 21. I want to say it was 21. If that's an 8, I'm like, I for some reason it wasn't. I know it wasn't 25. I'm trying to picture there. I think there's a Macallan 21, but it's been a long time. I know they have a grade 18 that's not cheap, but it couldn't have been the 25 because that's like very expensive. But I remember the age statement was high, and I go like, hey, sir, just so he came in, he's like 7 Macallan 18s or 7 Macallan 21s. And I'm like, sir, just so you know, that's going to be $35 or $40 a shot. And he's like, yeah, 7. And I'm like, fuck, okay. Like, you know, so it's like, but then there's a time where the guy's like, I'll take the Louis, you know, and they're being a big showboat, and then they don't care that they're going to complain. And you're like, you know, might not be Louis, most people know, but it could be something where it's like $80 a shot, and then they order it, and you're like, how do I broach this without being offensive to them and without having to comp an $80 shot?
My trick was always to bring in the menu and point at it and say, this is the one you want, right? And I didn't, once that's done.
That's a good point. That's a good lesson right there. This could be like lessons by Jamison.
You just play like you're dumb. Like, did I hear you right? You want this one? Point at they say yes, it's on them at that point. Because I've had that with bottles of wine where it's like, did he really order a $6,000 bottle? Did he?
I know me. I don't. In my many years, I don't think I've ever poured a $6,000 bottle.
I have. Japanese deuce.
What was it?
It was a Japanese two-top.
Wow.
$6,000.
Dignitaries, apparently.
Something. Comp from Caesars, because I remember it.
So, I mean, it's pretty wild because that you never know who's sitting at your bar, right? You never know, and especially in a place like Sand Dollar, very unassuming. Because especially when you do Miracle, now honestly, it's the least industry you have. I mean, obviously, industry still goes there,
Yeah.
but it's the least amount of like industry per person in there ever, because
Part of our training when someone starts working there is that exactly that. You don't know who's. I know if I'm in there, I know who I'm looking at because I know these people. But you don't know if you're serving the beverage director of Caesar's Palace or the Wynn, or you're serving a line cook from Giada.
right.
90% of the people you're going to see after 11 o'clock are going to be industry, and if you fuck it up, they're going to text me. Like, they have my number, they have Nate's number, all of them, they text us
Does
all
that get?
hours of the night.
I mean, I know it gets annoying, but like
I
where's
like it, honestly.
really? Because it's like crowdsourcing.
It's like a more honest Yelp. Like, at least they're coming to you and not publishing.
I'm not blasting you.
Like, my pizza cooks, historically, I've never had a cook that had a cooking background. I like trained musicians to make pizza, and I've had maybe dishwashers that became pizza cooks, and I tell them like 20 of the top chefs in Las Vegas, if not Nevada, are going to be at your window, and you're never going to recognize them. So make sure every pizza is dope, because I'm sure shit going to find out if it wasn't. Pictures and everything.
God, it's like a gift and a curse, because it's like you are going to find out immediately. It's like, hey, man. You're like, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, most of my good friends are the chefs, so they're gonna, if the food sucks, they're gonna tell me, or we're gonna be playing poker and they're gonna talk shit about my pizza.
Let's talk a little bit more about that. So how do you, I mean, I want to get into what you do with that, with that small space and how much you produce, also the cool activities you do through there. But how did that start? What makes you decide, okay, pizza is what we're going to do? Cause like Hard Hat does the cheeseburger, right? What made you go, pizza's the way to go? And
Part of the reason we decided to buy Sand Dollar is it was a grandfathered gaming license that didn't require a kitchen.
okay.
So
So is that, that's a thing. So gaming means you have to have a kitchen.
after, I forget the year, it's like 2000, they rewrote the legislature. If you open a gaming bar right now today, you have to have a professional kitchen with serves hot food with professional equipment. So you
And
can't
that's a new liquor license,
gaming license.
gaming license.
There's a couple other requirements, but that's the big one because kitchens are expensive to run and maintain. And
Yeah, bottles can sit here all day. Product has got to go, or you're.
it was basically a feud between Dottie's and PT's. Dottie's was expanding too fast, and PT's was arguing they were operating casinos on a tavern license, and then they're like, we have to pay all this overhead for kitchen, this and that. And so then Dottie's like put a microwave on the back bar and was doing like hot pockets, saying they're serving food.
Does that count as a kitchen?
Well, for a hot minute it did, and all it did was piss them off worse. And so they fully rewrote the requirements for a gaming license. So they have to have food now. So if you get a bar that is grandfathered, it's worth more because you have less overhead.
Absolutely.
15 machines with less employees. So we bought it, being told that we had that, which we did, but they told us the wrong expiration date of it. So after buying the bar,
So grandfathered in, but it has an expiration date.
you have to have gaming active within 18 months. If you go 18 months without a machine turned on, you lose it and you start from scratch.
Oy.
So I got a phone call after a couple of years of owning the bar. Sorry, sir, I'm going through your file and you can't get a gaming license. You don't have a kitchen. I'm like, what are you talking about, lady? Like, we're grandfather. She's like, no, your grandfather thing expired. And it was like 2 months before that phone call. I'm like, that's not what we were told.
Oh.
She's like, well, who did you speak to? I'm like, I don't know, but it was on speakerphone with a lawyer in the licensing office. And they told us, they put a freeze on licenses while they were rewriting it. So our clock was like in this weird limbo where it had been 2.5 years without turning on a machine. But the clock didn't start because they were rewriting the legislation.
But so you bought it, but it wasn't open, and that license was running out, or you just didn't turn the machines on for when you opened it first.
We didn't have a gaming license. There were no machines. That was part of the reason they sold to us, the prior family, is they had a freeze. They weren't issuing any new licenses for 2 years. So they bought a gaming bar, and then couldn't get a gaming license because they weren't issuing any licenses. And so it fucked them a little bit because they were depending on being a gaming bar, like a real 15 machine gaming bar.
Absolutely.
They weren't trying to actually do any programming. And the 2 years they couldn't get a license even if they did qualify. So they sold to us. And then we called the licensing. They said, okay, there was a freeze, so your clock didn't actually start when they removed the machines. It started as soon as they lifted the freeze. So
Interesting.
however many years, months later, I get that call that after spending all this money, that we can't get a gaming license. And for us, it was needed because doing live music 7 days a week is really expensive. And it's kind of part of our model. So
Can you go into that? Because I talked to Constantine once and I said, why isn't there a Sand Dollar-esque bar on this side of town? And he said, because the live music fee or whatever. So can you tell me more about that?
yeah, well, first of all, Vegas is full of professional musicians. They play in shows. They play up and down the strip. So if they're going to play anywhere, they're expecting to get paid. It's not like in Austin or in Nashville a lot of those bands play for free because they just want the exposure.
Really?
They're hoping that a
Just
music
get discovered
a music guy is in the audience in Vegas. They're
for free.
for free. I'd say 90% of bands in Nashville don't get paid.
That's crazy to me.
They're just playing to play because they know there's somebody who's going to see them in the crowd eventually.
Wow.
Not the case here.
No, sir.
So
Like band size matters because how much am I going to get paid
Yeah.
from this venue and how much do we have to divide this pot?
Yeah, we don't pay a ton of money, but we do pay more than your average dive bar would pay.
Which again, like you're saying, like notoriety, like getting exposure at a place like Sandal, you're like, you are going to have people. You don't need to bring people. We have people, but it's nice when you do.
It's a mutual. Their band does bring people.
Of course.
Very few bands bring enough people that would actually support a bar. So they need us to supply the other half of the missing people so they have a venue to play in.
And more people to hear their music.
They
and
bring
get the word.
people, we bring people, and together we keep this thing on the rails.
Okay.
Even with that, it would just be a really expensive hobby. Like it could support me if I was bartending, but if I didn't have the gaming, it would be pointless for my partners or anyone else.
Is there a fee? So, and it might be again like another grandfather thing, or it might be a regional, like an area of the city thing. But I was told that we can't do. You have to add a fee to every check. That's like live music fee.
If you're a venue over 200 person occupancy, you have to pay live entertainment tax. And maybe that's changed. I think it might have changed.
For the better or the worse?
No, for the better. They actually, I know it's changed because we don't have to do it at the downtown dollar. If you're charging a door cover, you have to pay an entertainment tax. And
But if you don't charge the door cover,
you don't have to pay the live entertainment tax.
all right, that's not bad.
I'm not sure if that's there. Maybe there is a higher threshold, like for 1,000 people venue or something. But for a restaurant or a bar, if you're not charging a cover, you don't have to pay live entertainment tax.
Interesting.
But that wasn't the case. It used to be 200, over 200 occupancy. You had to pay it if you had it.
And if you didn't have music, what would that place be like? Like, do you think it still has that? Like, there's a lot of bars that have, like,
Yeah, we would have had to. We would have needed. I mean, anyway, you can get a drink anywhere in this town. There's a bar on every corner. So in that respect, you have to offer something that, like, why am I going to get drunk a mile from work when I can just drive to my neighborhood and walk home? And even me, I drink. You got to really do something to get me to go drink across town.
100%.
So we would have probably turned our focus more to food if that was the case.
Well, so back to the pizzas then. What started this? Because you do pop-ups with chefs now, and they do.
That kitchen used to be my office, and the other stipulation of the gaming license is you got to have 2,500 square feet of public space. So behind the back bar doesn't count as. We have the exact 2,500 square feet of public space, so I couldn't expand. I couldn't move any walls. I had to build a kitchen in the office. That was the only. So we have 300 square feet. I'm like, what can we do in here? There's tons of things you can do. Tacos, kebab, or what do you call it? Doner kebab. That's what I wanted to do, but we got 2 stories with an attic, 3 stories of flooring and walls to get through to put in a hood system.
Yeah.
So then we had to explore what are ovens that don't need a hood that'll pass health inspection.
Wow. These are the things a lot of people go in. A lot of people see a restaurateur or a I don't know if that's what you would call yourself. I don't know if like owning bars and I don't know what that title is, but a lot of people that are restaurateurs or want to be don't understand what it actually takes. And like, not only the things you're expecting that are kind of like obvious, like cost of labor, like what's our clientele, all these things that you could kind of guess. It's like the things of like pivoting, like the variables that come up. You're like, oh, I didn't know that. Obviously, like I didn't know we were gonna lose our freaking gaming license that we thought we were grandfathered into, and a lot. It's like there's always gonna be something.
There is always going to be something.
You're like,
I don't know if you saw my Instagram story in the last couple of days, but our urinal pipe. Did you see that?
No.
I'll pull that up and show it to you just so you can get the reaction. But our urinals keep backing up. We've done everything imaginable, and finally the plumber's like, I think your pipes have collapsed. This is what the pipes look like. And every pipe in the building has been replaced.
Wait,
besides the ones in the wall, like the toilets. The landlord put in a new sewer.
Oh my God, that's why the urinals were down.
Yeah, they're still down.
No way.
That looks like petrified wood.
Hey, you're gonna have to send them that so that we can have that, because that's gotta be seen. That is cool, and it's because like on the when you go to the bathroom at Sand Dollar, it says please don't puke in the urinals.
Yeah,
it's
what's crazy about puking in the urinals. There's a fucking trash can 6 inches.
It's like
away.
it's like belligerent disrespect.
Yeah, and it happened a lot in the early days. Like, what the fuck, man? And I was in there with my rubber gloves, scooping it with my hands. I didn't have any employees. It's just me and the.
And it's like the hardest thing to ask if you have an employee, and they're like, $10 an hour employee, like, yeah, here's some shit I need you to get, and you're like,
People
I'm gonna quit.
In the sink. There's literally a trash can touching the sink and touching the urinal. You could just lean over. And they just choose not to.
Anytime you have a sign, I feel like it's become a problem enough to create a sign.
Dude, I started putting signs for everything because I'm just tired of explaining myself.
And no, it's kind of funny because it's like you're like, Jesus, this must have been a problem. But when we opened Bramare, Constantine, like it was like week 2 or week 3, and Constantine's like, well, we're officially a bar. We've had our first puke in the urinal. Yeah, that son of a bitch did it twice in that night.
Do you know Joon? I forget his last name. He moved to Dallas, opened.
Oh, Sun Joon.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, he opened up KAME out here.
Yeah, I just
Badass,
talked to him yesterday about people puking in his urinal in Dallas. Yeah, fire it up.
Little Parat. You said you talked to him yesterday about what?
People puking in his urinal.
So he owns a restaurant now, huh? Or bar?
A bar, yeah.
Cool. I mean, I have a story where I was one of those guys that used to be like, I'm terrible at deciding. So I went to him and I was like, whatever you feel like your favorite whatever you love making. And he's like, all right, motherfucker, And then I'm like, what's this? It's like a green foam top. And he's like, oh, it's a Midori sour. And I'm like, oh, got me. And I tasted it. I'm like, fucking delicious. I'm like, that's how he's a wizard. Because he'll take a classic cocktail and just made so well, and you go, okay. He really is. That KAME I haven't been there in years, but because when he left, he was like a big draw, and I'm sure they're still doing great things, but like, man, that was what an innovative program when he was there. I have no idea what they're doing now, which I should make a stop in soon.
It's reservation only, 500 ahead now. I don't think they have the bar program anymore.
Right, no craft cocktail. I mean, that makes sense. You're like, well, we're not going to be able to recreate that magic.
Yeah.
Man, that was a special, like 8-top bar, just really cool. There was
for me is across the street.
Oh, I bet. Sand Dollar in itself, Spring Mountain in itself has become, it used to be like basically Chinatown, right? But now it's like, even though it's still Chinatown, like on Spring Mountain, now you have, Garagiste, you have Partage, you have Golden Tiki. So it's like, it's kind of changed from like, and I feel like it started with like, Golden Tiki was there too for a long time, but like you and Golden Tiki.
Yeah, I think Golden Tiki opened like 6 months after us or something.
And to me, that made people go like, oh, okay, the real estate's less expensive, than these crazy properties. In some places they're asking way too much. And they're making some new, great, beautiful spots like the Uncommons, but I know their rent there is outlandish. So you have to charge so much to have a a program that makes money, and if you don't make money, then the program closes. So,
That's where we're at with Juliet. We're in the 2024 pricing.
whereabouts is that? I have yet. I'm dying to get there. I just haven't made it. It's like it's either so I want to get there soon.
Centennial Hills. We're on the Durango exit, so second to last one before you get to Lee Canyon
Okay.
or Kyle Canyon.
And what's the deal with those struggles? Like, what's the struggles with La Casa de Juliet?
Well, rent is expensive. It's 3 times the price of the bar, which is to be expected for a restaurant anyway. But it's just it's far. We've depended on industry support for so long, and industry doesn't want to drive that far up there. So we're depending on the neighborhood, but the neighborhood's predominantly families and elderly. So at 7:30, someone turns off the light switch. It's wild.
Interesting.
Doesn't matter if it's Saturday or Monday. 8 o'clock. Time for night.
During my time at Sparrow, we were talking about noticing a shift in Sparrow and Wolf, for those that Sparrow is shorthand in Vegas, but Sparrow and Wolf, we were realizing that since the pandemic, that it's an earlier crowd now in general, minus not even counting just like your demographic of the area you're in, but like Sparrow always opened at 5, and they're like, man, we have a line before 5, and then we kind of die at like 9:30. And he's like, it seems like everything, it used to be like 7 to 8 was like your busiest reservation time. And now it's like 6 to 7, and you have people that are there right when the doors open. So it's like, it seems like because there's not as many people going home from work and having to go change and shower. A lot of people work from home now. So, they're already showered. They're already ready to go out. And then they just leave at 4 or 5 o'clock. They're already at the bar by 5.
Yeah, we noticed that immediately. There'd be 10, 15 people at the door at 5 o'clock. So we're like, we got to open at 4.
You do.
So we started opening at 4, and it's changed a lot.
Yeah. It's just funny because we were witnessing that. It's like the whole entire town has like now this earlier start, earlier kind of quiet downtime, and then another boom for the late night, right? Like that late night crowd of people where so many people in the industry working that they're all getting off work. And that's why you kind of have to have a staple food, like at Bramari where I was begging them, and they're doing it without mine. Like, I'm sure they were already thinking of it before I was, but I'm like, where's our burger? Where's our pizza? Right? Like, where's our thing that people go like, I don't care if it's not what I'm like part of my diet right now. I just worked a long shift. I want to have a greasy burger. Or I want to have a crispy pizza with cheese loaded and a bunch of pepperoni. You know what I mean? Like, it's the cravey foods that you sell at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. It does not need to be fancy. It's honestly a detriment if you make it expensive and fancy.
Yeah.
It's like, give me something simple that I've been craving since I was a child. And that's kind of like a lot of stuff that the late night industry gets off, especially because we're kind of conditioned to it. Because like, what's open late? Bar food, But thank God, like Vegas has pretty good bar food at a lot of bars. I can't really eat at PTs much anymore, but like as far as like gaming, tavern, bars, like sporting life, that's another like over here. I think of my area because there's just not that much, and like this is the southwest of Las Vegas. I know you have like a place like Black Sheep. I haven't been to Locale in a while, but I don't know how they're doing. But it's like there's not that much craft cocktail and industry crowd, but there's so many people coming home that I'm like, man, if there was a Sand Dollar on Rainbow and Blue Diamond, that place would destroy. Like, if you think of the people that would be like, oh, it's around the corner from my house. There's so many people in proximity.
The problem is PT's buying all those. If you notice, there's 400 PTs in the Southwest.
That and Distill.
They've been buying every corner, so no one else can get in.
Jeez. And they have just so much money. It's just like
a mile apart, PTs. If you next time you're driving around,
it drives me crazy.
Yeah, they're doing it. Keep other gaming. If they buy the corner, another gaming license can't go in for 1,500 feet.
Okay, so that's a lot I didn't know. So you can't have a gaming establishment within 1,500 feet of the next gaming establishment?
Same with liquor license, a tavern liquor license.
Wow. Wow, this is like the between this and Van, it's like these are like the podcasts that are like, get your notebooks out. There's a lot of information being
If you think
relayed.
about it, the only place you can bar hop are special districts, our district, Fremont, and the Strip.
Yeah.
There's special zoning in those districts for licensing. If you're outside of those zones, it's 1,500 feet.
That makes sense because you know, Bramare and Cleaver are like they're right, and then you have Tacos and Beer and Marrakesh.
They have supper club license, which is a restaurant liquor license.
Interesting. Okay. Okay.
Different rules apply, but if you want a full tavern liquor license gaming, 1,500 feet.
Interesting.
So
Wow.
where does Water Street sit in that?
I'm not sure because it's probably different rules for Henderson,
That makes sense because they're a different city, right?
City of Vegas, or Clark County licensing.
But I feel like they have bars all right next to each other,
Yeah, that's
all up and down
probably-
Water Street.
The city probably put a special zoning to promote the growth of the neighborhood.
Right.
Interesting. It's funny. It's like there's a lot of rules until they're like, well, this is going to spur growth.
Yeah,
So it's
I mean, the East Fremont, I think downtown cocktail room, they had to get a special, that they weren't zoned, they couldn't open.
I mean, this is an education for anyone that thinks about opening up a bar. You're like the things that you don't think to look into versus not only like gaming in itself in Vegas is its own a nightmare, but it's the most lucrative thing you can do at a bar in this town, right?
You know, what was Kai's place, the wine bar that was down the street from Sparrow and Wolf?
Patio?
No, it's now Pincho's restaurant, where Irene's. I know you know it. It was a Asian-inspired tapas, like wine bar.
Dang it, I can't think of this.
You know Irene's though, right? It's now a Jackpot Joni's or some shit.
I know where the Jackpot Joni's is, but I'd never been to Irene's.
Well, they opened a wine bar right next to it and designed it as a bar with hopes of getting a liquor license. And because you got to have X amount of seats below 30 inches to qualify as tables. So you got to have a certain ratio of table seating to bar seating to qualify as a restaurant. So they didn't have that. All their whole place was bar seating. All their chairs in the whole place are the size of this. So they fall into being a bar. And now they're in the parking lot of Irene's. They couldn't get a liquor license because they were within 1,500 feet. They could only get a beer and wine license. So they got stuck being a wine bar. And I'm sure they didn't work that into their business plan.
That's pretty crazy, right? Like the liquor is such a revenue builder, which it is very interesting what you can do with a wine license. Cause I think I was talking, I don't know if the laws have changed since, this, but when Nora's opened 20 years, obviously they probably changed, but like Nora's opened 20 years ago or 25 years ago now, I don't know. And, they only had a beer and wine license. And that's actually, if you ever walk in there and you look up, there's like a rooster and like a ceramic rooster up there. And like, I think one other thing. And I'm like, what the hell are these? Why are they up there? And they're like, oh, that's how we used to serve basically sangria, like a cocktail, I don't know if it was a lower ABV or if it's just because it has to be batched. You can only get this. You can't get you couldn't get like a Jack and a Coke, but you could have the cocktail that's pre-made that it's lower ABV, so there was certain rules that they could do. And I'm sure they've maybe honed it in since then. Yeah. But I was always like, oh man, maybe if we just had a really dope batch program and beer and wine, does that count? Or is that law completely, do you know?
Yeah, I think it's a percentage. I don't know the percentage off the top of my head, but those Fat Tuesdays, those are made from sake.
Oh.
There's no hard alcohol in those things.
Across the board, that's
they have beer and wine licenses, so they make flavored sakes to make you a Long Island slushy. There's no liquor in that.
I feel cheated. Not that I've had a Fat Tuesday at any time of recent history. I still feel cheated. The hell?
It's a genius model.
I mean, brilliant. Who would have thought?
Beer and wine license is much cheaper than a liquor license on the Strip or Fremont, especially.
That's wild to me. Like that, there's not a hard liquor at a Fat Tuesdays, and you're like, I mean, because it's like all I can think of Fat Tuesdays is the one that I might have had since I've been in Vegas. It was a hangover. Yeah.
Yeah. It's fucking sugar and sake.
Whew. Yeah. That's interesting. It's funny. We talked about that recently, I think, with Ryan McGinnis about the Fat Tuesday tourist drinks in this town where it's like you have one for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You're probably pretty good.
I don't even know if I've ever bought one, to be honest. I think I've been with people that bought one.
With a heavy eye roll.
Yeah, I don't care what they do. Go nuts.
Fair enough. You did make that statement. You said, I don't like to tell people how to drink, which is a big thing for me. You know, you get that question, you know, especially with Amaro, because 90% of guests that come in don't really know about Amaro. They have no reason to, right? Like, but they'll be like, oh, how do I drink it? And I'm like, technically, however the hell you want. You know, some people like it on a cube with a lemon peel. Some people like it neat, you know. It's like, it's not supposed to be a punishment. Yeah. You know, when people are like, they're like, oh, yeah, give me Fernet. That stuff's the worst. You're like, wait, huh? Like, you want the thing that you think is the worst? Because I also happen to love it. But, you know, and then people are like, you can't like Fernet. You just drink it. And I'm like, no, I promise you, I enjoy it. You know what I mean? Like, but people sometimes, it's like Malort. Like, I don't know too many people that are like, I just love the flavor of Malort. And I don't personally. Like, don't kill me, Chicago. But I'm saying,
I just had a Malort the other day, and it was given to me blind, and I was like, that was nice, but I know what that is, but I can't put my finger on it.
All right, I'm gonna revisit Malort because nice.
I liked it. I was like, it was familiar, and I've only had it maybe 3 times. But
That's one of the few that I don't. You know, if I could say I don't really appreciate. Like, again, sorry.
I remember not liking it the last time I had it, but I had it blind, and I was like, this is not bad. And I was trying to remember what it was, and then they showed me the bottle. I was like, oh, that makes sense.
Is it one of those things that it's like, with most things in life, you taste it the first time, you're like, no. Taste it the second time, you're like, okay, I can see what they're doing here.
Yeah.
By like your 5th taste of it, you're like, all right, I actually think I like this
I
stuff.
don't think I'd ever had it sober before. That was part of it.
Gonna make a little mezcal Negroni. I mentioned Negronis were a big thing for me for a while, especially thanks to your bar. God, it's like when you step up to the plate and you don't have a cocktail in your head, it's a pet peeve to a bartender. You're like, dude, you've been in line for 5 minutes. How the hell do you not know what you want to drink by now?
It's real bad if you're in the industry and you get to the bar and start stuttering. Because we're like, you do this for a living. You've been standing in line for 5 minutes. And then you're like, what do you think is good? Get fucked.
That, and like, it's like, especially like know your place. It's like you're at the Sand Dollar. What do you like? I like you to order quickly. You know what I mean? Like, I'm busy. You know, there's people behind you waiting. Like, let's go. You had a menu. You had options. You had opportunity. You know, it's like, and then they're like, babe, what did you want? You're like,
Yeah,
this isn't the time for that.
It happens a lot, man. And then you end up in our group chat. Somebody will start venting about somebody in the industry that fucking string ordered or fucked with them all night because they don't know what they're doing.
How many times have I ended up in this group chat?
I don't recall.
Can't be 0 because I've gotten in a fight at your bar.
I was say I know you've been in it, but I don't think it was for that.
Now I'm terrified. If it wasn't for the fight, like, hey, the boozer's here again. I know I've left my card there several times, and I'm like, fuck, I did it again, guys. I'll see you tomorrow.
You know, you probably heard this, but in ancient times, the tavern owner was always the mayor of the town because he knew all the dirt on everyone. So they had no choice but to make him the mayor or vote for him or whatever. But yeah,
I haven't heard it. I haven't heard that, but it makes a lot of sense because I always, you know, in Livio's class and stuff, we talk about the fact that before Prohibition, the bartender was the dignitary, was like a politician essentially.
Yeah.
Because all the politicians used to have conversations in front of them. And, you know, ladies, forgive us, but women weren't allowed in the bar until like what, like the 60s or something, or the 50s or something. Like, it was some weird date that it's like, it's way late in history that women weren't really welcome in bars, and it was a bad look. So it's like, it was like a boys club, and it was like a politicians group, and they would all converse. And then the bartender ends up being like the most knowledgeable person in town, because he's hearing all this, all the dirt on everybody, and politics, and like current events. And to be a good bartender means you should know a little bit about sports. You don't have to be a sports guru, but you need to know how to converse with people that know everything about sports. You know, there's a lot of things like that. That's like the knowledge a bartender gets is like, this is a degree in psychology at this job. You know, you deal with so many personalities, you deal with hot tempers, you're dealing with short tempers because of alcohol.
I know more about people's personal lives, and I'm not even bartending anymore because the shit they do in Sand Dollar. And then, you know, for me at this point, it's like in one ear, out the other. Someone will text me apologizing. Sometimes I don't even know what they did. Then I have to ask my staff, what did dipshit do last night? They're texting me apologies. I don't even know what happened. They're like, oh, nothing out of the norm. Just got kicked out. Did something dumb.
Nothing out of the norm for you.
Puked in the urinal. Who knows?
There's a funny story. I forget who it was. You're gonna remind me. There was a guy that was a regular of yours, and he passed out on that little platform back couch.
Oh, yeah.
And he was in the room, like locked in.
It was the USBG Christmas party. Cheers.
Oh, those are notorious for
Tell this story.
for trouble.
I had tried to arrange to have the after party at Sand Dollar, and the USBG was like, no, we're gonna like rent a bunch of hotel rooms, this and that. I said, okay, whatever, no big deal. The party was at Venetian, so it's literally across the street from us. It would have made sense to be at after party at Sand Dollar.
Was that when it was at the Madame Tussauds?
Yeah,
I went to that.
yeah, and they halfway through the event, everyone started saying after parties at Sand Dollar, after parties at Sand Dollar, and I'm like, we're not fucking staffed for that. We don't have anyone working. There was like one or two bartenders, so I'm like panicking because there's 200 drunk bartenders gonna go, and I got one bartender on, no bar back. So I'm literally like running down Las Vegas Boulevard in a suit to like a CVS to find some shoes, like cheap fucking $10 shoes, and get to the bar.
Oh boy.
And I'm like sending out a mayday to my partners, like there's fucking 200 shit-faced bartenders headed your way. Meet me there, because they were at work at their other jobs.
Wow.
So we get there, we're all bartending in our suits and just keeping the ship afloat. And Tom falls asleep on the bar top.
Oh, it's Tom.
But he had a mask on his head. Anyone who knows him, he's bald. So I just see this like coyote mask staring at me, and then I realize his head is on his hands, and he's asleep. And I'm like, fuck, dude, and we're slam busy. So I'm just like, we gotta get Tom to the couches. So we get him off the bar. So like, Tom, get up. Just sit on the couches and get sober. Here's some bottled water. Like, you can't sleep on the bar. So he falls asleep on the couches in the back. For anyone who knows, it's around the corner out of view from the bartenders. We get our ass kicked all night, close the bar, turn on the lights, count the money, clean the whole fucking place, forget entirely that he's there, and go home. Oh. And it's a lockout bar. For that reason, if there's gaming machines full of money, someone was to hide or try and sleep inside and rob us, they can't get out.
Oh.
It's locked from the inside. So I go home after working and doing whatever. I always put my phone on silent. So at 11 o'clock in the morning, I see I got like 25 missed calls and text messages. And Tom couldn't get out of the bar. And so he's on Facebook in the dark, like Blair Witch Project, saying like, someone help me, like I'm stuck inside Sand Dollar, if you can get So he ended up getting a hold of Kenson, who got a hold of my bartender, and they had gotten up and got him out of there like 10 a.m.
That's insane. I'm picturing the Blair Witch Tom Tom.
It was hilarious.
That was December 12th, 2016.
There you go.
I was there. I took a picture of your mystery beer. That's
Wow, dude. See, full circle. Sandal, just bringing people together.
Yeah.
I have a story with Tom Tom that might be saved for another time since I wanted to kill him, but
I've tried to kill him a couple times.
we've become friends since then. But man, it's just funny because like everyone has their heyday. Like there was a period of my career out here where I was kind of getting a reputation for being a little too wild, too much of a party animal, and you know, there are funny stories. There's good stories about me, but you're like, okay, I'm a different person now. Like, forgive me for that, you know. But it's like a part of it that's like rite of passage. You got to fuck up a little bit. You got to skid your knee. You got to look like a dumbass a little bit, or else I don't even know if I trust you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you've never made a mistake, then I want to know what mistakes you're hiding. You know what I mean? But
Luckily, I did all those before the bar. Most of them, anyway. I was removed from the Griffin a few times.
man, that brings me. See, that was like we were talking about this recently. That like the Arts District's kind of like it used to be that like Fremont downtown spot, and then before the Arts District, and then the Arts District came, and it's like now I can't even tell you the last time I went downtown.
Yeah.
You know, like to Griffin, for example. But Griffin used to be like one of the best bars to go to in that whole entire area because they're like for craft cocktails, kind of cool, different ambiance, kind of dark and gothic, right? And in the back room, it was like sort of DJ and like library. But and I remember like that was just a lot of my time spent down there. And now it's like it's just funny how things go in cycles where it's like you had like this big movement downtown and doing all those things, you know, laundry room, beauty bar, you know, all those spots. And it's like, you just kind of slide over. You start doing a different thing. You start getting with a different group of people or, you know, there's a new hot spot, you know, like right now, like the Bramare spot that I was telling you, you could do a bar crawl from tacos and beer, you know, to Cleaver to Bramare, or you could even start early, do brunch at other Middle Child, which is Cleaver's sister and Cleaver and Herb's sister property. Do brunch there, go to tacos and beer, and like you could spend the whole day in that little complex, and that's kind of like, I feel like that's kind of what people are enjoying the most is like that several spots within proximity, and then those things have their day. Like the Arts District right now, to me, is the most talked about area as far as like you can never unseat Sand Dollar from being like your local. I honestly, it was a problem because Spring Mountain in 215, or Spring Mountain in 15, I should say. And I worked at the Venetian. I've worked so many times around Sand Dollar that like when I was at Sparrow, you know, you could always find, you're like, oh, it's just right up the street.
Circling back to the reasons why we bought it, that was when that night I was lying in bed and I was like, that's, you know, culinary school, business school, any school, they teach you location.
100%.
And I was like, sure, maybe it's cursed, maybe it's just shitty owners, but
Well, we found that out. That's definitely not cursed.
we amongst ourselves were like, if we can't turn a profit with a bar this close to all of our friends working, then we're in the wrong business anyway.
As far as centrally located is concerned, I feel like you have the market cornered on centrally located in Las Vegas.
Yeah, nobody wanted to touch that place. And I was just like, first of all, like I love the Griffin. My whole 20s were spent in the Griffin and downtown cocktail room. So let's put the two together.
Wow.
Put it right next to the fucking strip where all of us, and then, you know, 1942 has always been $20 at the dollar, which I don't know 10 years ago what it was, but everything that we learn about at work and drink at work, you know, that's $60 a shot, $100 a shot. We just sell it $20 and under. So you got these young and up and coming busboys, waiters, this and that. They hear about this thing in their staff training at Guy Savoy. They know they can get the Sand Dollar in 10 minutes and drink it for $20. And that was kind of our model since day one.
Yeah, and that's the thing I want to say. Like, I am honestly shocked sometimes because I get crazy, dude. Like, I'm a pretty frugal guy. I don't,
nice things. I know that about
Oh, dude, I am just I think it's like the fine dining steakhouses, and like I've made so many friends that were my regulars at those bars that like they showed me, like Kevin Hooks was the CEO of the Urban League, and he became my friend. And this guy was a guy that had his freaking credit card on file, and he'd be like 30% on the credit card on the file, and like leave, and then me and him start hanging out, and you're just like, you're out to dinner with him, and he's like, yeah, get the Lafitte, you know what I mean? You're like, am I about to have some fucking really expensive wine? Of course, absolutely. But it's like, once you get exposed to those things enough, like, don't get me wrong, I've gone through the stage where I got educated on what craft cocktails and really cool stuff was, and like fine dining and all this stuff. And then there's a growth period for most bartenders that go through this, where they learn about the finer things in life and the finer high end, and they come into like a place like Sand Dollar and be like, I would like, it's like,
that was
oh.
me. I mean, I came from a fucking small town in the middle of the desert, and I went to Eiffel Tower at 19. So it was like a whole new world opened up, and you learn about all these
Things
things
you didn't even understand.
They don't even let it. Sometimes we could taste things at work. A lot of times you're just learning about it, but you can't taste it because it's a fucking $600 bottle. I spent all my tips for 10 years eating out. I would eat out. I go spend $300-$400 by myself.
Easy.
Eating at a restaurant alone.
By yourself is a little bit of a challenge, but
I would do it regularly.
fuck.
I think I learned more about cooking just eating out than I did cooking and going to school.
That's the truth. That's a huge thing. That when someone tells you about culture and being cultured, like, that really just means you've experienced a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like once you get treated like they do at like Mayfair is like one of my favorite bars or restaurants in town. It's just, don't get me wrong. You go there, it's going to be expensive. Don't go like I when I go to a place like that, I go there with like, money's not the object, the time, the experience is the object.
Yeah, you're there for.
I don't care what it costs. Is it right for the evening? Let's do it. And I'm a little bougie, so I like to do it all. I'm like, I want to have a cocktail at the bar before I get to the table. I might have a second cocktail. I'm definitely going to do a bottle of wine, whether or not someone's sharing with me, because I'm just like, well, you're by the glasses. That's cool, but I want something different. I want something that not everyone gets every time. And then I'm like, okay, I'll get the bottle. And I can't tell you how many dates I've been on where I don't have to drink the whole bottle, but they don't know that. But I'll be like, yeah, I'll take a bottle of, are you drinking? No? Okay. I'll take a bottle of this La Sangiovese. And she's like, I remember a recent experience at Herbs and Rye. And she was like, I told you I'm not drinking. And I'm like, yes, I'll take a bottle. I don't know, it's her problem. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm like, hey, I'm not an asshole. I'm going to leave a little bit for the bartenders so that they can taste you know what I mean? Because like, that's another thing. Like, you don't taste your bottles too often.
My old roommate and I grew up together, and she was kind of a foodie. Then we started living together, and she became more of a foodie. But
Who you're around, right?
Once we lived together, she started meeting all the industry people. So we were sitting at Mon Ami one time, and I ordered a red and a white, and the server said, "Okay, so we'll bring out the white," and my friend, she started laughing. She's like, "No, the white's for me, the red's for him." And we just had 2 bottles of wine dropped on the table.
That's a woman I could marry.
Yeah, she's fun.
You're like, oh, she gets me. Hey, we don't have to finish it.
We're both from the same town. She has with same drinking habits.
Dude, it's funny because like I'm a big drinker. You know, it's honestly my biggest vice, but I also believe a big part of health and happiness is like everything within moderation. Of course, like don't get carried away, but it's like the people that teetotal and they're like, I don't drink because it's bad for you. And they're like, but you're a stress box. Yeah. You're like miserable all the time. I think you're going to die before me. You know, it's like, I'm the kind of guy that they're going to be like, oh, he'll be dead by 60 with the way I live. And then it's like, I'll be 90 years old and be like, it's the whiskey that's kept me alive this long, you know? And you when you see the person that's like 115, right? Like the oldest woman in the world, right? She'll be like, they'll be like, what's your secret? I had a dram of whiskey every night, you know? And it's like, it's the thought, it has nothing to do with the whiskey. It has nothing to do with your liver. It has to do with, I mean, obviously it does, but I'm saying like, but
I don't think it does.
it's really like your brain. Your brain is, you're like, I am fulfilled and happy, but I have a lot more to do. You'll live forever.
Yeah.
You know, if you're like, I can't tell you how many people I meet that are the healthiest vision of health. They don't even understand it. Like I had an ex-girlfriend. She did everything you could possibly do to be healthy, but she was a stress box. And then you're like, I know why you don't feel great, because you're just a worry wart. You know, whereas I'm like almost too laissez-faire, you know, to a fault.
There's definitely a fine line. You can be a shitbag if you drink too much, but
Of course.
I'm
And I've been there, and I honestly, like, this podcast is actually very sobering, because there's episodes that are canned because I thought I could handle it better than I do. And then you do an event before a podcast. The podcast we're going to drink, which you can't. It's really hard. We'd have to be doing shots to get drunk in an hour and a half. You know what I mean? Like, we could have 4 drinks, but by the time it really hits us, it's like the podcast is over. So it's not a big deal. But you can't start already pretty good and then be like, yeah, because then it's like that window of, you have like 90 minutes where it's not going to hit you that strong. Once you're going, and like, I've tried to start a podcast already having 3 drinks in me, you know, over the course of several hours, but still. And I'm like, oof, that doesn't
Have you
look
ever
good.
read my captain's logs?
No, I've heard about them. I may have seen 2 on social media, on Facebook, but I didn't know if you were doing this as a regular.
No, I mean, a lot of them, they were like venting exercises, but a lot of them were written pretty drunk.
The most honest.
Yeah, I prefer that way, but sometimes I get too drunk, and I know I'm too drunk. I'll start writing, and I'm like, So I'll write it in my notes just for fun, how I was thinking it at the moment, and then I'll reread it in the morning, and I'll be like, holy fuck, I can't post that.
Who was this guy?
If they were ever posted, those almost were always live. The ones that I write in my notes privately, almost never
rethink it?
They never make it to public.
I'm guilty of that, where it's like, man, with a couple drinks in you, it sounds right. And then you're sober in the morning, you're like, yee.
Well, there's a combination of your thoughts being jumbled, and then your fat fingers typing all kinds of shit, and autocorrect and spell correct, even making it worse. Because I'm not sitting at a keyboard when I'm doing it. I'm like laying in bed at the end of my day, blowing off steam. So sometimes they're pretty entertaining just to see how fucked up they were.
That's a great question that makes me think. A guy like you got so many businesses, you've got a wealth of you have no shortage of issues every day. Text, hey, this is going wrong here, this variable here, this variable there. Do you have a system that helps you unwind every day? Are you like, cause me, like personally, just for reference, I get home, and I don't care what time it is, I'm not going to bed for 2 to 3 hours minimum. It could be 5 o'clock in the morning when I get home from work.
Yeah.
I'm not going to bed at 6. It's just not possible. So like, do you have a method? Is every night different?
It's evolved over the years.
Of course.
I met my fiance because it was during COVID. You know, I'm on the verge of going out of business and becoming homeless as a result of that. So I'm like,
This is the woes of so many restaurateurs.
I don't know if the stress level got any higher at that point. So I would go to Berlin, order, I forget the name of the beer. It was not a rare beer, but you don't see it anywhere. But they had it, so I would go there, get a hot dog, and I like to sit in the corner at bars. So I like to sit in the corner and listen to music, and go through my bullshit, my emails, everything else. I decompress, or I would. Now I can't do that because I got 2 kids. So I'm up at like 7:30 the first time, or second time. And then I don't go to bed again until about midnight. My oldest son, who's 22 months, if you can call him oldest. They're still babies, but he goes until 10, 11 o'clock at night every fucking day. So I got to wait for him to tap out. And then once he taps out, I can look at my phone uninterrupted and I filter through emails.
So you get a lot of work done too at this time.
Sort of. I don't like typing on my phone, so I at least take mental note of the things I need to reply to the next day. Then I go through social media, and I'm back to running social media for all of the businesses. So that takes time.
So you're running the social media for everything?
2 out of 3 plus the pop-ups, yeah.
Jeez, man. Do you ever
We've had a guy, we've had people, but
they're all full of shit.
no, they're not bad. We just opened a new restaurant and we're financially stretched thin, so
One less thing to
can't
pay
pay
for.
that salary. So I'm doing it again.
But so it's worth it in the grand scheme of things, like when
Yeah,
you're
I'm
when you're
not
stretched thin?
great at it, but I did it for the first 8 years. I did it. Everything you ever saw from Sandler was just me laying in bed at 2 a.m.
That's pretty interesting.
Like
pretty funny.
those first 2 years, I would get to work around 1 or 2 in the afternoon. I'd get home about 5, 6 in the morning, and then I would do social media at 6, 7 in the morning, and then go to sleep.
Does your workload get in the way of your relationship? I mean, I there's an obvious yeah, duh, but
No, it's definitely it's hard for her. It's hard for me too because I feel bad. But she didn't sign up for this life. She's not. She met me after I already owned Sand Dollar. I opened Plaza right after we met, so she met me during that process, and then we had a kid. And I'm like, we're opening this restaurant, and then find out we're pregnant again. So it's a lot for her to digest. It's a lot for anyone to digest. I have a friend who's like, we talk about staff. It's like it's hard to motivate an employee to be as driven as a owner.
hard.
It's
Impossible.
It's also hard to motivate your partner to be. She doesn't need to be driven, but she needs to weather it with me.
And then on top of it, your workday's over, and you still have to be a spouse.
Yeah.
So it's it's not right to not be.
There's no clocking out now. There used to be clock out.
Your downtime is when you sleep.
I could sit at the end of the bar at the end of my day. I could work a 16, 17-hour day, no problem. I could go to the bar, sit in a corner, talk to my psychiatrist, the bartender, which used to be Adam O'Donnell. And then
So you're still going to Jive Turkey for your regular appointments?
it's nice. It's down the street from my house, so I've seen him twice now.
I like to see an owner behind the bar. I don't know what it is. I loved when you were behind the bar. I love that Adam's behind the bar. Adam O'Donnell just recently opened Jive Turkey, which is a very cool concept, not too far from the Arts District. Or is it technically part of the Arts District?
Huntridge.
The Huntridge, which you might have to inform us.
It's an old neighborhood that's about to revive.
All right, so that's a little piece of information. The next up and coming neighborhood is the Huntridge.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of money there. Yeah, Adam used to be at Herbs and Rye in the early days of Sandler, so I would go to Herbs and Rye at the end of my shift, sit in the corner, eat my linguine noodles, and he had just become the bar manager. So we just talk shit about brand ambassadors and salesmen and all the bullshit about running bars. So we were like each other's psychiatrists. And now he's opened a bar, and we've been talking for months.
He probably picked your brain a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine.
I was almost a partner with him.
Ooh.
That's a different story, but
Yeah.
obviously I'll help anyone who wants to open. So we talk. When he has questions, I answer him, and vice versa. And now he has fucking great food right next to my house.
That's a big thing I gathered from you. Like I said, you recommended me for a job, and you only knew that I was skilled, and I don't even know what you assumed of me. But I'm like, man, why is this guy recommending me for a job? And I barely knew you, and I'm like, wow, what a humbling experience. But
I do sit at a lot of bars anonymously. That was always my hobby, but I know a lot of bartenders that don't even realize I'm watching them or see them. I don't think I've ever accepted a job application, to be honest. I've poached unhappy people that I thought were skilled.
Absolutely. And I mean, there's a thing also about like the poaching. You say there's a point where any restaurant worth its salt wants their badasses. They're to go to the
Me,
next step.
poaching is if I went to Sparrow and Wolf and told someone to come work with me, or to Esther's.
Because it's close, you're friends. That's a little more
That's
rude.
legit poaching. If you're at Olive Garden and I see that you're a good bartender,
Like
there's
you're
no mercy. There's no rules.
right. And honestly, the Olive Garden is fine. They don't care.
I met Chase in a bathroom stall at Life is Beautiful.
What was he doing?
I had
Like,
known
what was he doing at that time in his career?
he was a bartender, and I knew who he was vaguely, and I had sat at his bar. And then
Which bar was that? Is that okay?
Atomic.
Oh, okay. Boom. Good name to have.
And then I knew that he had moved to BBD's.
BBDs.
It was the burger place at Pal Station.
Oh, okay. Palace Station has a couple little hidden gems there.
I went there. I sat at his bar. He was fucking awesome. And I knew he was unhappy through his friends telling me.
When you got that much talent and
He knows more about beer than anyone I've ever met.
he knows more about most.
He knows more about beer than
Beverage.
brewers know about beer.
And I didn't know that. I didn't know his beer knowledge was that vast. I honestly, it's my experience of watching him make batches and cocktails. I was just like, what a wizard. You know,
Yeah.
like I have the utmost respect for that guy. And I'm glad that you obviously have seen that and have emulated his role as much as you can.
Yeah, he's great. I forget the exact. He could probably tell it better than me. But I said, "You want to come to Sandollar?" He said, "Yep." I said, "Okay, sangre per sangre, you're hired." It's all via text. I never interviewed him. I never asked him questions or nothing. He came, and now we're business partners.
I mean, I can't think of a better team, honestly. And
He is great at cocktails naturally, or not naturally. He put in the work, but I have a cooking background and he doesn't, and so sometimes he gets maybe caught on something or maybe something needs tweaking. So I fill in the blanks with cooking techniques, and together it comes out banging. Yeah,
I need to reference this based on that. And I know we got to wrap it up here soon, but do you still use this as a reference? To me, this is something when I'm going to make a cocktail for a menu, I consult this.
I consulted it once. I think I loaned it out. I never got it back, to be honest with you.
That actually is how books work in this business. Like once you give it to someone, they might give it away to another person, but you're not getting your book back.
This is gonna sound weird, but like when I think about something, I can taste it. Since going back to like being a kid that wanted to be a chef, when I was in culinary school, if I think about something, I can like visualize it in my mouth.
Are you saying you're gifted right now?
I can't pick up dog shit. I can't pick up wet dog shit. I'll lose my mind.
Because it just ruins your nose. Like,
If I smell it and I touch it, I can taste it.
wow.
It's fucking.
It's a gift and a curse.
When your dog shit over here, I didn't even look at it because
Full disclosure, dog's having a bad day. Dog's having a bad day.
my girl knows. I'm getting better with the diapers. It's a.
But you're like you don't understand the molecules are in my nose.
I
They're
dream
sitting
about
there.
flavors. Like I really like food a lot. Like since I was a kid, so like I really like it. So transitioning from cooking to bartending is real easy. Bartending is a lot like fast-paced line cooking. It's almost exactly the same, except you have drunks.
Please delve in.
You have drunks screaming in your face instead of chef. So I think that's how I picked up bartending so easily, is because it's the same muscle memory.
Multitask, mise en place.
Super multitask, super mise en place. Use your steps wisely.
For the few that are watching the show that don't understand, mise en place is a French term that means legitimately things in their place, and it is exactly what it sounds like. You know, to prepare for Jamison to come over tonight, I'm like, oh, we're gonna do mojitos. So I have mint. I should have picked some mint. I didn't do that. I have lime wheels cut. That's mise en place. Having everything in its place so that when the production is on, you can go to work and there's no stoppage of work. So mise en place is a very important term in craft cocktails and in every restaurant. If there's a restaurant worth its salt that has a kitchen with a real chef, they're using the term mise en place. And then now it's extended to beverage and the people that take themselves seriously. Like I have a bar roll. I have chefs that watch me unroll, like Chef Vetri. When I opened up Vetri, I almost had a point of pride that before my shift, I would roll out my bar roll and I'm like selecting my weapons for the evening, and then like Vetri would walk by and he'd be like, pretty cool. I love how you take care of your tools. You know what I mean? And it's like right there, you have the respect of the chef. That's like a huge thing is
I can walk to a bartender station, a line cook station, doesn't matter if I'm at the restaurant, and I can look at what it looks like at 3 o'clock before the doors open and be like, this fucking guy sucks. Like I can't teach you, I can teach you organization, but if you're at a certain point in your career or a certain age, bartenders that come to the dollar that I haven't trained personally from being a barback, and they fucking like this is gonna be bad.
right. And that is really like, you can have a young person that doesn't know much about what you're doing and what your goal is, but they could be the star without knowing they're the star.
Yeah.
You're like, wow, dude, thank God this person's here. And obviously, I've learned this too. You could be the star and you're still replaceable, right?
I literally I asked my girl the other day because she's a machine bartender in like a service well, but I'm like, how do you teach ADHD? I need OCD. I need my guys to be more OCD, more organized. It's like you can't. You just have to identify it and hire it.
I'll close. We'll close on this. One of my favorite mentors is KAME, and he'll come up a million times on this because I just love the guy. He's a really outstanding person, but his way of teaching was more of like, I hired you, right? So I know you're going to witness me doing this, and it's going to bother you, right? So me and Adam Giles, who's like my ace deuce, like me and him, we roll together. We'll work together again here soon, I'm sure. But like, we'd be sitting there, and we're pretty clean. We're pretty sound, and a great team. And then Kane would come up, and he'd be chatting. It was a slow moment at the restaurant, and he'd be chatting with us, and he'd find a towel, like a sanitary, and he would just start wiping as we're talking, just like me and you are talking. Like, yeah. And he's like finding every little spot on your bar, and he's not complaining. He's not yelling at me. He's not telling me, you fucked up. I am telling me I fucked up. I'm like, God, he's finding stuff. And like, I'm watching him find it. And I'm like, I'm like losing my mind.
Who I talk to privately and we trade stories is Brian Howard. You can tell when you walk in that place that he's
methodical.
It's fucking so clean. It's like, it's the best.
The one thing Brian didn't love about me was that I'm not structured like that. And he's so structured.
He's crazy structured.
I have nothing but respect for that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck. Sometimes you don't work right with someone because they have such a pristine program, and I have a good program, but I'm not methodical like that. I'm the mad genius. Emphasis on mad. I am like, oh, let me figure it out, and he's more just like, this is exactly how you do it. This is the process. If you're good, this is how you do it. If you care about your job, you do it this way. And I have the utmost respect for that guy.
Yeah, it's wild. I can see it looking in his kitchen. I can see like, holy fuck.
Like, you're not allowed to not have a straight label. Like,
oh, yeah,
when you do your strip on your dates and it's all tape. Like, that's honestly like, that's the cool way to do it. Is like, you have a good big strip of tape, you're putting your dates, you do it, and it's knife cut.
Yeah.
If you do a slant or you ripped, I'm going to get talked to.
Big no.
They're going to be like, dude, what happened here?
That's the thing at $7.
Chef Alec was like one of the first people that made me realize how serious that was. He was like, what's going on with your label here? I'm like, what? It's labeled. He's like, It's a little jagged.
I have cutters because I don't want to seem like a maniac to my staff. I bought dispensers that cut.
Oh, nice.
But
Like a tape.
Yeah, it's
yeah.
made for the blue tape. But if it's not straight, someone's getting fucking talked to.
Oh yeah. Well, on that note, dude.
Yeah,
Hey, I need you to come back. We're cutting it off. This is too good. I want to hear more.
I'm down.
Fuck yeah. All right, man. Have a great night. It was great to see you.
Yeah, absolutely.